So here's the thing, is I'm Appalachian. Can y'all see? I've been breaking beans, and there's something about being Appalachian and breaking beans that you can't do it by yourself. And I gotta have somebody to talk to to do it with. So I've got, these are the beans that I've done broke so far. I've got a bucket that's about, well, y'all can see it right there. And then I've got a bucket in between my legs. It's got my strings in it, and then a couple tough beans that I pulled the bean seed out of. But I figured we could sit and talk and break beans together. If you got beans to break them with me if you want to. But I figured it'd just be fun to sit and talk and socialize a bit. I've got a video coming out of me picking these beans, but it's got a video or two ahead of it. Oliver, lay down. No, sir. And so, y'all gonna sit and break beans with me? I know it's midday. I know people are at work. But like I said, I can't hardly break beans by myself. I gotta have somebody to talk to while I'm doing it. And, I'm gonna be starting canning probably tonight. We spent the day out at the farm yesterday, weed eating fence rows and mowing and getting quite a bit done. I went and got all my rabbits situated, my older rabbits that are 6 weeks old. We went ahead and separated. Well, we didn't separate them. I went ahead and separated and weighed, and then got them sexed. Figured out their gender of each of them. See, y'all see this bean tough? This is what I do with tough beans. I go ahead and string them. You know, we're Appalachian, so we gotta have string beans. And I go ahead and string them, open them up, and then just put the bean in there. And I can those too, so. But I didn't get to this yesterday. I needed to get to it, but I didn't get to it. We didn't get in till, I don't know, probably in and settled till around 11 o'clock last night. So I'm gonna say sometime around 10. When I looked at the clock, when I finally got in bed and started getting situated to get a video up, I had to finish editing one and go ahead and upload one. It was like after 11. And so it was a late night, but we got a lot of productive things done yesterday. Like I said, I went ahead and weighed my rabbits again for their 6-week weigh-in. And around this time, I usually separate, but I'm noticing that they're still drinking off of mom, so I'm just going to leave them in there. But guess what, guys? Out of, I think it's 16 of those 6-week-old rabbits, only 3 of them are males. So unless they change gender between now and about 8 weeks, I'll check them again at 8 weeks when I prepare to sell them. We ain't gonna have to do much separation, which is nice because, guys, I'm out of cages. I think I counted the other day. I've got 21 babies right now. Now, after all these are weaned, though, I'm gonna give mamas a break throughout the summer. Hey, girlfriend, look what I'm doing. I'm breaking beans. I've got 3 of these in the fridge right now. Thank you, Eric. Hey, buddy. Get back to work. But yeah, I'm breaking beans. I got a can tonight. Hopefully. I'm going to break them now, and then we'll see if we can get in and can later. Guys, yeah, I'm a wreck. Y'all see my hair? And so as soon as I got up this morning, I was like, I'm going to start breaking beans. And so that's what I'm doing. I'm breaking beans. Well, I said that's what I was going to do, but then I found a million other things I needed to do. I work for the state. I don't work. I was telling my husband the other day, I couldn't think. He used to work on a road crew. He would blacktop back when Lakin was a baby. Go lay down, Oliver, now. And he used to blacktop, and I couldn't think of what the guys' names were. That's like over the crew. I said, you know, like the guys that sit in the truck the whole time while everybody's working. And he laughed. He said, you mean the, he said it, but now I can't think. But that's how I described them, the guys that sit in the truck all the time while everybody else is working. I hope y'all's weather is okay. You know, I ain't even been outside. Ain't that crazy? I think it is warmer today, but yesterday was so nice. It was only about 86. I think yesterday, and it was nice. Of course, we were sweating, but that's a big difference between, you know, like the 100-degree, almost 100 degrees we've been getting into here recently. So, 80 was nice. It was nice enough that we got out there and started weed eating, and the baby rabbits were cool enough that I could go ahead and check genders. It's been so hot out, which, I mean, those of you in the South know, Harmon Homestead knows, it's been so hot out and so dry that you can't even handle the baby rabbits. I've got baby rabbits that just opened their eyes, day before yesterday, so they're like 13 days old, and I have only handled them like 3 times because it's been so hot that I didn't want to get them overheated. It's been unbelievably, just ridiculously hot and humid. Oh my gosh, the humidity will knock you off your feet. You walk outside and you can't breathe. And my father-in-law's on oxygen, and he can't even go outside hardly. He just can't breathe. The air is so thick and heavy. Here's the thing is, like, I don't know what the weather's like up north, but do you all have humidity? I'm probably gonna go out on a limb and say y'all probably don't have humidity like we do up here. Or down here. I don't know. It's rough. I hate it. I hate the heat is not bad. You start talking to a Southern about heat. Every one of them's gonna tell you the heat's not horrible. I feel like we could manage the heat, but it's the daggone humidity. Going outside and it instantly becoming wet with sweat and your skin just like sticking together. Like you feel like, I don't know, you feel like you just stepped out of the shower. Except you got your clothes on and it's nasty because your clothes are wet and soaked. Y'all are going to notice in the next couple videos that I post out that like I've soaked through my clothes. Like the video that I posted picking these beans, I kept looking down while I was videoing and I was thinking these people are going to see just all kinds of sweat. And you can't help it. Like, I mean, everybody sweats, but it's awful. You'll be able to see it in the videos because I'm usually like, I'll go to do a task and then like, well, the video I posted today, I just hoed around the tomatoes and you can see at the very end of the video, I don't look like I've been beat. My shirt's hanging off. I'm covered in sweat. My face is all red. Doesn't look like I done got in a fight. And all I did was hoe a couple tomatoes. It's hot. It's hot, but yeah, I think it is hot today. I haven't even been out. I've been trying to get housework done. Like I said, we were gone all day yesterday. And I didn't get guys, I got dishes in the sink. I got dishes in the sink. And got a can today, so I'm going to have to clean my kitchen before I even, do that. Will you let him out to go potty, sissy? I'm gonna have to clean the kitchen before I can even can. I got canning jars, look, lids, jars all over the table, rings, a sink full of dishes. So welcome to homesteading life. If you want to be a homesteader, you better get used to having a dirty kitchen, especially around this time, because around this time you're gonna have. I just put that in the thing. Around this time, you're going to have dishes everywhere, jars everywhere, produce all over the countertops. You're going to have projects started and not finished, and you're going to have a dirty house. And your floors are probably going to have pieces of dirt and leaves off of them that come off the fruit. If you wear shoes in your house, you're going to have probably muddy or dirty stuff all over the floor from your boots and your shoes. I got to go pretend to work. Have a good day, rest of your day. All right, Eric. Get back to pretending. But yeah, it's a task in the summertime to try to keep a house, and I can't. Like, I'm just not one of those. But I don't know anybody. I don't know a homesteader woman that's like, oh yeah, my house is spotless during garden season, because it's not. If it is, they lying. The only time the house will become spotless and during garden season, if somebody calls you and tells you they're going to be there in a few minutes, and then you start, stuffing things, get them dishes washed or something. That's the only way. And guys, my house ain't nasty. I don't want it to sound like my house is nasty, but guys, you got to do what you got to do. And so I've got dishes in the sink from breakfast this morning, but I got to get these beans done before we head out to the farm this afternoon when Andy gets off work. And I need to get some beans going for supper. I told my mother-in-law, I said, it's eating, we eating high on the hog now. And she laughed. She said, you mean the garden? I said, yeah. I said, we eating high on the hog. That's a southern expression if you didn't know that. And garden season feels like, I would rather have garden season food all year long than you take me to a steakhouse. For sure. These are, I'm in Appalachia. I'm in Kentucky, Eastern Kentucky. And that's where my accent comes from. And these are pole beans. These specific pole beans are called pink tip beans. This is a new variety to us this year, but I'll show you why they're called pink tip. So let me see if I can find a bean. I don't know if you'd be able to tell it or not. Can you kind of tell that the bean has can you see that pink part on it? It's got like a pink hue to it. Here's a couple more. They got, once they dry out, they turn completely pink. And this is a variety that we just found at I can maybe show you here. Can you see inside that bean how it's pink? These are string beans. They're pole beans. They got strings in them. We're not big pea eaters. We just ain't big pea eaters. I've never had a snow pea or anything like that, so I don't know if I'd like it. Well, I take that back. I've had it on, if you go to a restaurant or something. But I'm not a big pea eater. But I will let you all know, if y'all stay tuned, I will let you all know about these beans. So far, I love them. We have raised a lot of popular beans like the rattlesnake, the greasy beans. We raised white greasy beans this year. I call them white greasy beans. I have no clue what the actual name of those are. They were passed down to us by an elderly neighbor. He gave them to us, and he had brought them down. He's from McGoffin County. Which is way up in the Appalachians, and in the state of Kentucky. And he brought them down, and he had given us seeds that were very old. And he gave them to us in a little mason jar, and he said, I don't even know if these are going to work or not. And so we planted them, and they come up, and they became instantly my favorite bean when we had them. We have two types of greasy beans or greasy back beans, if you're familiar with them. One of them is a brown seed bean, and the other one is a white seed bean. And we like both the white and the brown seeded beans, but the white beans are my favorite. Now, I'm going to go back and tell you, though, that these are becoming my favorite. This is our very first year growing them. These have produced more bean within a shorter period of time. So the greasy beans tend to have vines that grow all the way up. Hello, how are you? Wilbur, how are you doing? They tend to have vines that grow up the pole, a little bit higher. And something that I've noticed about these beans, it seems like they put more. Here's some pink. Can you kind of see where they're pink? They look so white on the camera, but they're like a fuchsia pink almost. I don't know if you can tell, but I'm doing good. I'm breaking beans. They have a shorter vine, but they're producing more fruit. And something about at least for us, which I think is an Appalachian, maybe even a Southern thing, is we like tender beans. We don't like a tough bean. See, that would be a tough bean, but this bean is overripe, I guess is the way to put it. And beans like this, I string. See if I can get it strung. I open them up. I'll string them. This one's not wanting to string. I open them up and I take them beans and just put them in the bag. And when I can, I just can them in the jars with my beans. But I forgot what I was saying. But I like these beans. They seem to be tender. They taste very good. We've done had a batch of these. They have a really good taste. They're a really pretty bean. As you can tell, they've got a really pretty color to them, a good size. I don't know what that means. I don't know what that comment means. But they've got like a bean that has feelings. My biggest fish. Oh, buddy, I don't know. This is my husband's hat. He fly fishes for muskie. He's a muskie fisherman. He catfishes. He's just recently gotten a catfish. Usually if I'm going fishing, I'm fishing to eat. And so I'm going to be fishing bluegill. Panfish is typically what I go on the pan fishing trips. I like fishing, but I like fishing in like small creeks and ponds and stuff. And so when I do, I'm not big on catfish. The way that catfish tastes. He just said I like catfish. I like your panfish. I like bluegill. I like crappie. Oh, crappie is my favorite. But I tell you what, I do like the way musky tastes, but to be honest with you, I don't think that I am strong enough or sophisticated enough to fish for muskie. My husband is an excellent muskie fisherman. He is like, he would die if he heard me say this, but I believe he is an expert muskie fisherman, and I don't just say that because he's my husband, but I say that because every time he goes muskie fishing, he usually catches a muskie. He's like a muskie hunter. But my husband loves fishing. Like, I thought that when we got married that I loved fishing. My husband loves fishing. I've seen that man get up at 5 o'clock in the morning in the dead of winter, icicles hanging out of his nose, him froze to death, and him out there fishing. That man loves to fish. So this is his hat. I don't fly fish. That's a skill that I would love to learn how to do, but it's not something I know how to do. I can bait a hook with a worm or a minnow or crawdad or something like that, but I'm not an expert fisherman. I'm just you're like your backwoods country girl fisherman that can, bait a hook and usually is out there to catch for food. I'm not like a big, like a big game fisherman. I guess it ain't really game, but, well, I guess it could be game. But my husband is. My husband is an excellent fisherman. My dad is a bass fisherman, and he was known for bass fishing long before I come along. And I've heard many people as I was growing up talking about how good of a bass fisherman my dad was. And he loves bass fishing. My dad also makes lures, and he makes and sells them for big fish and small. Let me see. Is that where you are kind of flying the fish rod, flying the line? But yeah. Fly fishing, if you're not familiar with it, Wilbur, is it's a way, it takes a special pole, special bait. It's lightweight fishing, but you can catch larger fish. So my husband musky fishes, and so his target game is musky fishing, and musky fish are huge. Like 3 and 4 foot big. And so it takes a lot to pull them in. And so that depends on the weight of the line. So he's going to have like a stronger weight. But fly fishing in itself is a very lightweight, it's an art to fishing. It's very beautiful. And it takes a different type of bait. So it's not going to take like your regular lures. It's going to take a lightweight lure. Usually they're just a couple ounces. But it's a special pole or a special lure. A special lure, a special line, and a special reel to fly fishing, and it's beautiful. It's an art. It's about timing. It's about how you use your arm, how you finesse the line. It's beautiful. It's a beautiful way to fish. I agree with you there, Mitchell. They have. Yeah, my dad has, well, he loves fishing, but my dad is a, no, if you knew my husband, he'd probably laugh at me and tell me I don't know what I'm talking about. But my dad's an artist, essentially. He's painted my whole entire life. And he makes big rats for let me see. I don't know if you could reach that rat, could you?
I can, probably.
I'm gonna have my daughter get one of the lures he's made. But he makes rats and little bluegill and stuff like that. He paints and carves them. He's carved my entire life. I've got a lot of carvings that my dad's done, but he also paints. He's just artistically inclined. He did not pass that ability on to me, though. I'm not artistically inclined whatsoever.
I got it.
Did you get it?
Yeah.
She's going to bring it to me. And I will show you.
Yeah, Daddy's got one of his lures out of the tree, I think, with one of them things.
This is one that my dad has made. This is not a rat, but, or yeah, maybe that is. I don't know.
I think it is.
I don't know if this is the ones he calls rats, but every year my dad makes a lure for my husband and my brother-in-law, because my brother-in-law is a fisherman as well, and there's his signature, and he makes them, and he gets better and better every year with it, but he makes them for my husband and my brother-in-law. But yes, he's a craftsman for sure. All right, you want to lay that in there? I'll hang it back up.
Yeah, I don't know if I can reach it now.
Yeah, well, my he makes them for my husband to use. But my husband used it one time. He'd been using it and then got it caught, and he put it up after that. He said, I ain't gonna lose that. So, let me see. My dad is good at doing self-portrait. That's amazing. I'm not artistic at all. Let me see. I'm sure it would. I'd say your all's muskie's beautiful. It's amazing how fish are so different from one area to the next. yeah, especially if they're made by somebody special to you. It's rough. We've got lures that were my husband's great. It would be his great uncle, and he's caught some muskie on them. Caught a lot of muskie on them. He was a muskie fisher. His great uncle was a muskie fisherman as well, and he had a lot of lures, a lot of old lures. I mean old, like 20, 30 years old, and my husband fished them for a long time, but he was really lucky. He caught a lot on them, but he lost it, got it caught, and he spent, he used to fish every single day, and so he'd go out there that same spot every day and try to get that lure out. He finally got it, and after that he said, I ain't doing that no more, and so it hangs up in the house. But yeah, it was nice talking about fishing. My husband, I wish he was here. He's at work, but if he was here, he would have loved talking about it. He loves to fish. And it's funny because when we got together, we would go, when we go fishing, it's like, 3 to 5 hours is when we go fishing. And usually about 3 is my limit. And so I'll start getting antsy and then just, want to do something else. And he'll be like, he's told me one time, he'd be like, you lied to me. When we got together, you said you loved fishing. I said, I do love fishing. But most people has a limit of the amount of time that they can just sit still and fish, and 3 hours is my limit. And so usually I'll fish with him, and then he'll get aggravated with me because I want to get up and walk if we're bank fishing, and I want to get up and walk the edge and just sit. I like being outside is more what it is. I like to fish. I like catching fish. I like eating fish, but I like being outside. I'm just more outdoorsy type. And so that's what I like about fishing, and just kind of the memories that are made with fishing. My daughter gets antsy like me too, and she gets done with it pretty quickly. She might get more of a tolerance for it the older she gets, but she, gets done with it she's done with it in about 30 minutes. And so he gets aggravated with us. But he can fish the entire day. 5 hours is nothing to him. He can fish from the daylight to the dark, and he has. There's been many morning I wake up and him not be there, him going on a fishing trip and not come in until supper time. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I agree with you. Yeah, that's why she brings a book. Well, I have a YouTube channel, and so once I get done, then I just start videoing stuff. Everything is content, as they say, and so which we ain't went fishing, guys. I ain't gonna lie to you. It's been since last summer since we've had the opportunity to go fishing, and it's sad actually. Thank you for popping in. I appreciate it so much. You struck up a good conversation about fishing, and I appreciate it. And if you haven't subscribed, subscribe. I probably got I think I got about one fishing video on there if you want to watch it. I think we caught a turtle that time. We didn't even catch nothing. But thank you. Thank you so much for popping in. It was nice to get in, to chit-chat with you. But yeah, we love to fish, and my husband loves to fish, and he's excellent. Thank you, Wilbur. Thank you for popping in. It's wonderful getting to talk with you all. It's awesome. I can talk about it. I definitely can talk about fishing. My husband's got more stories. Maybe one day I can get him on here. Awesome. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Maybe I can get him on here and start talking about fish stories and fishing and things like that, because he's got them. He's a wonderful fisherman. And I'm proud of him. You know, like, there's so many people in this world that just, like, go through life and don't never find their talent. They don't ever figure out. No, we don't have a cover crop for beans. We usually harvest beans all the way up until our first frost, which is usually around November. I want to do something a little bit different this year, though. I don't know necessarily if we will do a cover crop. Usually in the fall, we try to get greens in, collards and stuff like that. We'll plant greens because our winters are mild for the most part compared to a lot of places. But usually we're harvested up in November. Typically, depending on how quickly winter wants to come for us. I think our last frost date is sometime in October, typically, or our first frost date, whatever you want to call it, somewhere in October. But typically in our area, we're going to be harvesting tomatoes and beans and stuff like that. At least tomatoes and beans up into the fall, into November. Now, something I want to do this year, we're working on the organic matter of our soil composite. We have a heavy clay soil. And because of that, we're really trying to work on upping the composite of the soil. We have been adding manure, horse manure, cow manure, goat manure, chicken manure, and rabbit manure over the last couple years. And it has improved the soil greatly. We have been raising a garden on the farm for about 3 years in that particular area. Of that, and before that we had very well drained, very healthy soil. The original soil that we have grown in our home garden is an old horse pasture, and so the soil composite is very the soil composite is very I'm gonna have to tighten the hat, it's hanging over my eyeballs, is very good. But the soil composite out at our farm is not so good. It's heavy clay. And so we are the first year it did not drain well. So we worked on how to figure out how to get the soil to drain. We have accomplished that. And we have been working on just adding organic matter to the soil. Something that I think I will try to do this year. We have a lot of trees in our area, and because of that we also get a lot of leaf litter. And I'm thinking with research, Where our soil was always good before, we never really had to do anything to it. But having to find ways to improve our soil, I have found that a lot of people use leaf litter and organic matter besides manure to put on the garden during the winter and fall months. And so I'm thinking that I'm going to use some leaf litter to cover the ground. We'll have to see how that works, but I think that it will definitely help improve the soil. I know that the manure has improved the soil. Something else that we did over the fall after the garden was done, or I guess it was over the winter, we had somebody come in with a tractor and really get down into the bottom and till up a pretty deep into the soil. And I was worried at first that it wouldn't, we had discussed it and I was kind of nervous. I was worried it was going to bring that old clay soil up to the top, but I can say that it has actually improved the soil. And so we are trying to work towards that. A cover crop would probably improve that even more. But it's not anything that we have discussed. I'm glad you brought that up because I have looked into it some. What do you use a cover crop on your soil? If you do, what do you use? I would be interested in an idea. Typically in our area, in this area of Appalachia, our main crops going are soybean now and corn. Used to tobacco was our main crop in eastern Kentucky, and your big industrial farmers, the ones that did tobacco and soybean and stuff like that have the larger fields, they use a cover crop. But to be honest with you, I do not know what it is. Well, I do. I've seen one farm here recently that's used wheat, I believe, as a cover crop. But I don't know. So does anybody have any ideas of what a good cover crop would be on kind of a small-ish scale? I know that our garden is small compared to some, but larger compared to others. I wish I knew the exact size of our garden, the exact square footage. Maybe we can figure that out one day. Give me just a second. But I would be interested to see what other people use for cover crops in their area. Hey, Lakin. But one good thing about beans is something that it is something that provides us with a lot of food. I was talking the other day when I did the video. Did you let Ollie in? Mm-hmm. Can you grab me an L8, please? That one good thing about beans is they are a heavy food producer, at least in our area. And beans is a typical, pole beans especially, are a typical diet for people in Appalachia, or at least our part of Appalachia. We're not the only part, but typically it's a heavy food producer, and so I like finding new pole beans. And I was talking about these beans in the beginning, and I'm pleasantly surprised with these beans, how well they're doing, and so we will see how long they produce throughout the season. Rattlesnake beans are something that's going to be a heavy producer. A lot of people like rattlesnake beans because they produce way up into the season. But I find that most pole beans produce way up into the season. Unless you're just not picking the beans. One thing about pole beans is you have to be out there picking the beans. You got to pick them when they're ready. If not, they will, one, get tough, and two, the plants will quit producing. They're not going to produce as much if you don't pull the bean off of them because they'll think that they've done their job. So you got to be out there. You got to be out there checking them and pulling them beans when they're ready, and harvesting them when they're ready. That way you can allow your plants to continue producing throughout the year. Now we did grow bush beans as well this year, and one of them, it was the tenderettes and the blue lakes. We have raised tenderettes before, and I believe we have raised blue lakes before, but it was years ago. It was probably when we very first started garden, when we got married, and so it's been a long time. So we it had been years, and so I had forgotten kind of what they tasted like and what they were to work with. And to be honest with you, I liked the blue lakes. But when I was out harvesting beans the other day, I did the tenderettes, and to be honest with you, I wasn't a fan of the tenderettes. They are tender. But it's almost like the plant is tender as well. And so they were very hard to pick. They were probably one of the hardest beans I've ever had to pick specifically because when you would pull the bean off, the bean would either break, and I'm going to guess that's because it is tender. But also they would either break or you could not get them off the plant. Like it was like the plant wanted to hold on to them and it would not release the bean. And so you would break the vine, you would break the bean, you would pull babies off and everything else trying to get the bean off the plant. And so I had forgot that, or maybe I just didn't. I don't know. Well, when we first started gardening, I had a baby, and so for long hours of the time where you got to be out there bending over and picking, that was just not feasible for me, and so my husband did it. And so that was something that he did for me. And so I don't know if I just never did pick them or what, but the tenderette bean, just on a scale of my favorite a bean this year, it is my least favorite, only because it's so hard to pick, only because it's so hard to harvest. My new favorite is going to be these pink tip beans. We will see how they do towards the end of the season, if they continue to produce, if they continue to produce tender beans. Next up on the low list is the white half runner beans. White half runner beans are something that's very common in our area. It's something almost everybody grows. They usually grow them up their corn and not a trellis. But I just spilled that everywhere. Golly. I was getting thirsty. I spilled that all over the beans. There's something that's very commonly grown in our area, but they do not grow well in our soil type. We have grown them out here at our home garden, and they do wonderful in our soil. But out there in the heavy clay soil, out at the farm, they do not do well. We've grown them 3 years in 3 different ways to try to see if we could get them to do any better. And this year they are the worst producing plant. We still have not got beans off of them. They are scattered on the trellis. They're not, they're very spindly looking plants. And so that will be something that we stay away from. So on top of the tenderettes, golly. Here, I'll show you all this bean, if I can get it out. Can you see it? I've been trying to show you the pink the whole time. That one is really pink. Can you see it? Such a pretty bean. But on top of the tenderettes, that's another bean that we will not be probably fooling with next year. Next up, we grew, like I said, the Blue Lakes. I like the Blue Lakes. They have a wonderful taste. They're good and tender. They're a bush bean. So you don't have to trellis them. They don't take up much room. They seem to be doing well and healthy, especially since we've been in a drought. That's another thing. If we're going to have a plant on the farm, I like to test the drought worthiness of my plants. So it has been really dry and humid here. We have gotten rain for about 2 days in a row over the last couple days. But before that, we hadn't had rain in about going on 3 weeks. And so the plants were put to the test on that. They went a long time without rain, and some of the plants proved themselves. Other plants did not. And really, that's something that we need to take in consideration when we're planting a garden. And I talk about it on a video. I think the title of the video, the thumbnail says, "We quit watering our plants." Or quit watering our garden or something like that. Something to that effect. You should be able to find it pretty easy if you want to watch it. But we need to take into consideration the environment in which our plants are growing in, and we need to try to boost and encourage our plants to go through droughts and go through wind and go through hard times and see what stands. And whatever stands, save the seed out of that, because that's a resistant plant. We want to grow resiliency in our plants. That way we can. I just dropped that bean down in there. That way they can produce later plants and offspring that are stronger and more resistant to whatever comes in the environment. You take areas are increasingly having more droughts. Especially our area is increasingly having more droughts, and so we need to start building our plants up. Somebody commented on one of my videos the other day and said, "We don't grow no sissies," but really that's kind of the thought of it, to go ahead and grow some stronger plants. If your plants go without water for a period of time, they're going to start digging down into the earth. They're going to start getting stronger roots on themselves and going ahead and burying themselves in the ground. That way that they can find moisture. In turn, that's going to mean for roots that go deeper into the ground, it's going to make for stronger, more wind resistant plants. It's also going to make for plants that can stand to go without water for a longer period of time. And none of those things are bad things. None of those things are things that should be on the, of list of things you don't want plants to be. You do want your plants to be stronger. You do want your plants to be wind resistant. You do want your plants to be drought resistant. And to get better and better is to save the seeds out of those plants. That way they can continue to produce stronger, hardier plants in the long run, which will make it easier on you as well. So that's my stance on it. I know it's not going to work for everybody. I know not everybody can go without water for a long period of time. It depends on climate and things like that. But I think that we all can agree that having stronger plants in the garden and producing seed from plants that are strong is not going to be a bad thing, and will in turn help your farm. And it would be good to have plants on the market like that to produce plants like that that can just to withstand just some of the trials and tribulations of the weather and things that go on in the environment. I'm trying to think of what else beans we grew. Well, I talked earlier on that we have grown and are growing this year the greasy beans. That's a very popular bean in our area, and I'm finding that it's getting ever more popular around the United States, having greasy beans. They are some of my favorite tasting beans. If you want a bean that's going to be strong in flavor, then you want a greasy bean. A greasy bean is going to have a stronger flavor palette to it. more of a green bean taste. They seem to be more flavorful, and that goes for the two different types of beans that we had, which is the white greasy back beans, and the brown seeded beans. Like I said, we have two different types. We do not know the name to either one of the types. I was discussing earlier that our neighbor, our elderly neighbor, had brought some down from an area where he was raised when he came to our part of Kentucky. And the other beans was some that we had found at a like a yard sale. It was a yard sale that was held locally in our area, a couple counties over, and we had went to it. We seen beans sitting there, and they said greasy beans. And of course, we fell over ourselves getting the seed, and we asked her where they were, and she didn't have a clue. She said her husband had sent them for her to sell, and she didn't know the name of them. She just knew that they were greasy back beans, and so we don't know the name to either one of them, but by this point I'd say they've probably changed and morphed themselves from the original bean a little bit, depending on where they were from, because they have been raised in multiple different areas and multiple different climates. Like I said, that the elderly gentleman had given us the seeds, didn't know how old they were, but knew they were pretty old, and wasn't even sure if they were going to produce for us. And thankfully they did produce for us, because I love that backstory of it. I love having the bean. I love the way they taste. They have a wonderful taste to them. So we ate pink tip green beans the night before last, and last night we ate the greasy back beans. Like I said, right now I'm working on the pink tip beans. I do have a small bowl of a couple handfuls, I'd say about six to eight handfuls of greasy back beans. I've got an entire bucket, let me see, this size of tenderette beans, and I've got Blue Lakes somewhere. We did not get any beans off of the white half runners, like I had said before, so we'll see if they produce. Right now we are getting about a tomato or two every single day out of the garden. Our cucumbers are coming on, but nothing real strong. I did plant a watermelon and a cucumber in our experimental garden plot. I showed that in a video. I think the title of the video was "Everything Died in This Spot." We had previously planted pumpkins down there, and the 3-day frost hit our pumpkins and our potatoes, and our potatoes plants suffered and didn't do very well. They are producing potatoes, but the plants themselves are just, I don't know, they didn't thrive. And our pumpkins died. So I planted a cucumber and a watermelon down there, and they are thriving. They are doing very well. So we'll see. These beans towards the bottom of the bucket are a lot tougher than the beans at the top. So, but how is everybody else's garden doing? I've been talking the whole time about beans. Does anybody else grow pole beans in their garden? It's more of a tradition, and it's a traditional food in our area. Pole beans are. Different areas of the world have different food traditions, and pole beans is a food tradition for the eastern part of Kentucky. Well, Kentucky in general, but the eastern part of Kentucky, Appalachia, has a very strong food culture, and most of that was based upon survival. If you know just a little bit about Appalachia, you're mostly going to know Appalachians, especially in Kentucky, as being poor and survivalist, and they were, and we still are, and we're foodies. And we like our food. We like our garden food. And in the summertime, when the gardens are in, that's what our world revolves around. We are either eating, harvesting, picking, producing, growing, preserving food. And that all comes down to survival. People in Appalachia, the culture of Appalachia, are survivalists. They lived off of low means, and they produced a lot of food in the summertime, and their pantries and throughout the winter was proof of that. They made it through the winter as strong individuals, and produced a lot of food throughout the summer to survive on. That was what they were surviving on. If you are not familiar with much of Appalachia, it was years before we had roads and stores in our area, and the stores were not full of canned goods and things like that. The stores were for flour and sugar and things that they couldn't produce on their farm or on their home, but their produce came from the farm. They grew their own produce, such as beans, tomatoes, corn, pepper, okra. Those are all things that are very popular in the Appalachian food diet. We eat a lot of beans, a lot of onion, a lot of peppers, a lot of tomatoes. Tomatoes is a heavy hitter in the Appalachian food diet, along with pole beans. Corn is another thing that is heavy. That is a heavy hitter in the Appalachian food diet. But out of all of those, I would say the two number ones are pole beans and tomatoes. You can ask any Eastern Kentuckian, any Appalachian, about tomatoes or beans, and they can probably give you a recipe that's been passed down from generation to generation, from mother to daughter, from grandmother to granddaughter. There's multiple recipes with that, and that's because because these foods were everyday diet, and so they were used substantially in the kitchen. Pole beans specifically, if we're just talking about pole beans is a meal. Tomatoes are a meal in the Appalachian food diet. I've got these beans broke. I've got them in a bag right now. I could take this bag of beans, get a pot, put it on the stove, cook up some fat, some salted pork, some bacon, some sausage. Typically sausage was not going to be used in green beans, but you can do that. But the typical diet would be a side of fat meat. Salted pork typically would be what was in the bottom of the pot. You throw some onion in there, and you would let your beans simmer on the stove for an entire day. When the beans were almost done, you would take some new potatoes, you would pop them on top of it, throw them in the pot, let them simmer until they were cooked and tender. Once the potatoes are tender, you take it off the heat, and there you go. You got a meal. And that fed a family. And that was a meal, and that still is a meal in this area. Another thing is what we call soup beans. That's also a form of bean. They are a pinto bean. And that is another food diet in Appalachia. Soup beans, as we call them, are an entire meal. Usually you would have it with a side of cornbread or biscuit, just to have it with your meal. But bread was a staple food. Biscuits and cornbread were made in the morning, and they were a snack, a dessert, a side dish to go with your meal. Especially cornbread. It was cornbread, corn cakes, things like that was and was an Appalachian meal. It's funny because in different cultures you can see where these meals are passed down over and over again, and those meals become home. When you have those meals, when you make those meals, it becomes like home to you. It feels like home. And there's certain foods in Appalachia specifically that you can think back and you can think, well, my mama made this, or I've had this my entire life. My mama used to make this, or we have this snack every day when we got off the school bus, or a lot of people around here will argue that their mama made the best biscuits that you'd ever taste. That their mama had the best biscuits, and your mama's biscuits wasn't no good because their mama's biscuits were good. And so there's a million arguments that you could get into when it comes to cooking in our area, but it's because food is wrapped around our culture in a lot of ways. And there's something to be said about something that you can grow, that generations can grow, and you not only pass on the skill of growing food, which is a survival skill. Growing food is a survival skill, but on top of that, you're passing down the tradition of learning how to cook that food and learning how to eat that food the way your ancestors did, the way your grandparents did, the way their parents did and their grandparents did. And there's something about that that's amazing to me, something that I am doing my best to pass on to my daughter. We were talking last night. My daughter is not a picky eater. She never has been. She's been raised up eating green beans and greens and pinto beans and fried taters and all of that. And things that typically you're not going to see your normal kid eating, you will see them eating if you just introduce those foods at such a young age. So she knows the food. Like she not only knows, hey, this is a green bean, you can buy these at the grocery store. She knows how to grow this green bean. She knows when the green bean needs harvested. She knows how to preserve the green bean. She knows how to cook the green bean. And it's because that tradition has been passed on through generation, for generations. What's crazy is that I am a first generation farmer. My grandfather was a farmer. My parents were not. I was raised in the city, what I call the city, which was more of a town. I was raised in town, and I longed my entire childhood to be a farmer. I wanted animals. I wanted a farm. I wanted to be able to produce food. And before I was even out of high school, I was doing those things. I worked at a local greenhouse. I was producing food. I was part of our local clubs that help produce food. I was working with animals. And now it's come full circle, and that's what I do. That's what I do for a living, is produce food, raise food, grow food, process food, preserve food, and so I'm thankful that I get to pass those things on to my daughter. Things that I've had to learn in my adulthood. My mother did not preserve food. She did not raise a garden, and she didn't cook the foods like what my daughter's used to eating, or what I'm accustomed to cooking now. When me and my husband got together, I didn't even know how to cook. If I boiled water, I'd probably burn it. But my husband and his mother and his grandmother has taught me these things, these traditions. It's tradition. They have taught me these things, and now I get to pass these things on to my daughter, which is amazing to me. It's wonderful to me, and I'm thankful that I get to have her with me, and then she gets to do these things. If I wasn't videoing right now, she'd be in here breaking these beans with me, and so I'm thankful for that. That's something that I'm extremely grateful for, being able to pass these traditions down onto her. That way that she can pass them on to her children. That way when she looks back, she can, when she has soup beans or green beans or tomatoes or something, when she becomes an adult, that she can look back and it can feel like home to her. And she can talk about her mama's biscuits and how her mama's biscuits were the best biscuits. And her grandkids can talk, or her kids can talk about how good my biscuits were and how me, their mama, made the best biscuits. And I love that. I love the thought of the future that comes with these traditions, these food traditions that are wrapped around our culture in Appalachia. And I think a lot of times in America, we almost seem cultureless because we're such a melting pot of different people. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with being a melting pot of different people. But if you go to different areas within the United States, you'll find that there's different food cultures, there's different traditions, there's different ways of talking. Somebody got on here earlier and said, I like your accent, where are you from? Or cool accent, where are you from? And people ask me that very often. And if you start going from place to place, you're going to realize that people dress different. They act different. They cook different. They have different food traditions. They have different ways of doing things. Some places are a lot slower. Some places are a lot quicker. In the South, especially in our area, we're going to be commonly known as slow. We're going to be slow moving, not very fast paced. And I think a lot of that comes down to the fact that we don't live by a clock. Common tradition in our area is not really to live by the clock. Sorry, I'm losing my charger here. It's not to live by the clock, but live by the seasons. And we find ourselves living by the seasons. I find myself living by the seasons. I'm living by the season right now. I'm talking about having, green beans as a meal, or having green beans every single day as a meal. That's living by the season. I'm breaking beans right now. I'm not going to be doing that in the wintertime. I'm only going to be doing that throughout the summer and the fall. I'm living by tradition. And I find that living by tradition is slow living. And I don't see anything wrong with living slow. I don't see anything wrong with living with what life gives you, but not running after things to get. And that goes pretty deep. And I know some people are probably not going to agree with me on that, but we don't live every single day chasing after $1. I know that that's going to sound mean, and I don't have anything against people that have, my husband's out working right now, but we live by tradition, by seasons. That means that we work with the seasons. My husband is a seasonal worker. He works construction. During the wintertime, it's slower. He gets to be home with us more. But in the summertime is a busy time. He stays busy. I stay busy. I'm in the garden working. In the fall, school season's here. We homeschool. So we're living by the seasons in that. And I think people would be a lot happier if they could slow down, if they had the capability of slowing down and just living with the seasons, living with what every day gives you, and not being in a rush to go this place or that place. And I know that life is full of all kinds of things, and guys, we stay busy. We're always busy. But I find that we're busy in the things that are in that time. We're busy in the things that are coming at that time. And I like it. I like living slow. I like living this way. I like having what people will call a slow-paced life. Although we're not living in a big old fancy house and we don't have a whole bunch of acres and we're not driving brand new vehicles and we don't have all the new fancy gadgets, I'm okay with that. My husband, he's got an iPhone, but I think he's got like an iPhone 6 or something. We're not out for the latest thing, and we're not going to spend our time chasing after those things. It's much easier just to, and I don't have anything against those things, guys. I'm not trying to speak against that. I'm trying to speak to those people that want to slow down. Those people that are trying to get rid of debt. Those people that are looking for something more than just getting up and going to the office every single day. Those are the people that I'm speaking to. And I know that not everybody can just stop right in the middle of life and say, well, I'm not doing it anymore. I know that. But we have intentionally made our life slow. We've intentionally decided that I was going to stay home. We've intentionally decided that we were going to have a homestead, that we were going to raise our food, as much food as we could, to survive on, including meats. We intentionally decided that we weren't going to be in a bunch of debt. Our vehicles aren't new. Our home is not fancy, but it's paid off. Our vehicles are paid off. Or, well, we've got a small payment on one vehicle still, but we bought it used. And so we just try to keep our debts low. That way that we can live, like I said, with the seasons. That way we can live slow. A new thing that's come out a lot, and those of you that are here for homesteading content have probably seen it. A lot of people are moving into like little storage buildings. They're moving into little houses and places, and they don't have the big houses and the brand new vehicles, and they're not thousands of dollars in debt, and they're trying to get rid of their debt. They're trying to keep their bills low. And you'll find if you can keep your bills low, if you can keep things like that, if you can keep yourself with no to little debt, you'll find that you can live by the seasons, that you can live slow, that you can find peace in just having less. And sometimes less is more. Have you ever heard that saying, less is more? Sometimes less is more. Sometimes having less doesn't mean that you're lower than somebody else. It just means that you have different priorities. And I'd say a lot of people would look down on us for that. I would say that a lot of people would drive past our house and think, wow, they live in just the slums. But our goals are different than people. Our goal is not to have the fanciest, latest this or that. Our goal is to live together. Our goal is for our child to have her parents with her as much as possible, to have her mom and dad with her as much as possible. Our goal is to have our child raised in a way that she can be as self-sufficient as possible, that she knows how to raise meat, that she knows how to hunt, that she knows how to fish, that she knows how to harvest, that she knows how to grow, that she knows how to preserve, that she knows how to cook. Those are the things that are important to me. Yes, we sit down at school when it's school season and we get out the big math books and the social studies and the science and the reading, and all those things are important. But to me, learning to survive in this world, learning how to raise and grow your own food, and to be able to stand on your own feet is just important. Is just as important as those things. Learning how to do algebra or read or something like that. Those things are important, but to me, those life skills are even just as important. Maybe sometimes even more important, depending on the situation the world is in, than sitting down and just learning those things. And so people have different priorities in life, and just if your priorities are not like mine, that's okay. You don't have to agree with me, and I don't have to agree with you. And that's the cool thing about having the freedom of speech. But having this world that we live in, if we all had the same skills, if we all agreed all the time, we wouldn't have the things that we have in this world. We wouldn't have the type of people that we have in this world. We wouldn't have maybe some inventions that we have in this world. We wouldn't have made some of the discoveries that we've made in this world. I'm a big nut on history. I love history. I love cultures. I love learning about cultures. I love learning the way people did things. I love learning the way people do things. I love learning discoveries. I love science. I love the history of the world and the history of people in the world. And I think that we can learn from those things. I think that we can learn from our past when it comes to things. And I think a lot of times this world so quickly forgets where we've come from. They so quickly forget the skills that have kept us alive for thousands of years, from generation to generation, from the beginning of time. And I think that if we were smart, we would look back and see how those people lived and see the situations where they went wrong, see the things that they needed improvements on, see where they went right, and maybe learn from those things, maybe choose to learn from those things. But some people don't agree with me on that, I would say. And that's okay. People don't have to agree on absolutely everything. And like I said, the world wouldn't be the world it is today if we all agreed on things. We wouldn't have made discoveries like we have if we all agreed on things. And I'm the type of person that somebody can have an opposite opinion, and I'm willing to hear them out a lot of times, unless it's just ludicrous. And it's kind. I know a lot of people, through the mask of social media, want to get on social media and just blurt out their opinions on matters and be hateful and mean about it. And we don't have to be that way. We can be courteous to others in expressing our opinions on things. And I'm not small-minded. I like to hear people's opinions on things, but a lot of times people just try to stir others up. They try to blurt out their opinions like their opinion is the only one that matters, and they don't try to actually help anybody. They try to hurt others. And so, anywho, well, guys, I guess I'm gonna hop off here. I've got some beans I gotta wash, and like I said, I've got some dishes in the sink I gotta do. So I appreciate everybody that's been on here. We've been on here for about an hour and 20 minutes. I'd say nobody that was on here in the beginning is still here as my guest, but I thank you all so much. If you haven't subscribed, please subscribe. If you stuck with me, thank you. I appreciate it. Y'all, thank you so much for just spending a little bit of your time with me and listening to me as I just chit chat and wander on. But guys, thank you so much, and hopefully we can see you on the next one. Guys, like I said, subscribe if you haven't already. Bye guys, see you later.